Good morning, third graders. I just finished reading chapter 16. Oh my gosh, so much excitement. Can you imagine the secret their father had to keep all these years? What if their father really was from the land of stories? They have a lot to think about, don't they? Of course, the troll and goblin caught up with them, and Connor was so smart to leave a trail of the blood from the scratch on his arm so that the wolves would follow. And now the wolves are taking out the troll and the goblin. They ran and ran and ran. And it says that they're somewhere between the fairy kingdom and the sleeping kingdom. If you don't have this map, if you don't have a book, you might not have this map, but here's a good picture of it. Way down here by Mermaid Bay, and they are on a cliff, and Connor just pushed them off the cliff. So, chapter 17 we're on. Goldilocks, wanted, dead, or alive. Oh my goodness. It was just before sundown, and soldiers from Corner Kingdom were hot on Goldilocks' trail. She had been spotted on the outskirts of Baker's Village in the early afternoon and had been on the run ever since. A group of 20 men were right behind her on their horses, determined to take her into custody by any means necessary. Luckily for her, Goldilocks had the fastest horse in all the kingdom. "Come on, Porridge," Goldilocks said to her horse. "You can make it, girl. We're almost to the border." Excuse me, sorry. They passed Rapunzel's tower and crossed into the dwarf forest, but the soldiers kept chasing her. In doing so, they were breaking laws that the Happily Ever After Assembly had enacted. But then again, Goldilocks had broken so many laws, she had lost count. So she doubted the soldiers would experience any repercussions for breaking the law. Porridge had an advantage over the other horses, since she knew the dwarf forest by heart. She and Goldilocks gained a lot of ground from knowing what was behind every tree and which paths led where. "Split up and find her," Goldilocks heard one of the soldiers order from behind her. Goldilocks could feel her horse getting tired. They had been running for hours, and she knew Porridge needed a break soon if they were going to stay on the run any longer. They came across an abandoned barn that was partially hidden by trees. Goldilocks had often used this place to hide from anyone hot on her trail. "Porridge, I'm going to hide in here and wait it out," Goldilocks told her loyal horse. "Find someplace safe and rest. Meet me back here at sunrise." So Goldilocks was sending her horse off to get something to drink, eat, rest, and Goldilocks was going to rest in this barn. Porridge nodded and galloped away. Goldilocks withdrew her sword and approached the barn. The door was off its hinges. It looked like someone or something had forced its way in recently. Why do you think Porridge would run away, even though Porridge was so tired she needed to take a break? Porridge was protecting Goldilocks, right? He didn't want the soldiers to see the horse and be near Goldilocks, because then they might find her. Pretty loyal horse, I'd say. The inside of the barn was a disaster. Stacks of hay were knocked over, stables were broken down into nothing but bits of broken wood, and there were blood stains on the floor and the walls. But thankfully, whatever caused this damage wasn't here anymore. Goldilocks put away her sword. She wasn't intimidated by the barn in the slightest. She had seen much worse, had been through much worse, and had caused so much worse in her own days on the run. She took off her long coat and her sword and began unlacing her tall boots, getting ready to settle in for the night. Something colorful caught her eye while she was doing so. A bright blue fabric was sticking out from the bottom of a stack of hay. Blue fabric. Goldilocks pulled it out from under the haystack and examined it. It was a beautiful, bright blue gown with delicate stitching. It reminded Goldilocks of a dress she had owned when she was a girl. It had been so long since the last time she had worn a dress. She discovered a mirror hanging on the barn wall. It was slightly tilted and had cracks on the bottom half, but she could still see her image perfectly, her reflection perfectly. She didn't like what she saw. Goldilocks was young, but she had aged so much since the last time she had seen her reflection so clearly. She was a full-grown woman now. Goldilocks undressed and put on the blue dress. She let her hair down and ruffled it up a bit. She wiped off all the dirt on her face with a handkerchief and looked in the mirror again. She stared at herself, completely awestruck. She forgot how beautiful she could be. She only wished Jack could see her looking like this. In the blink of an eye, Goldilocks had retrieved her sword. Wait a second. She wished Jack could see her looking like this. Such a beauty, such a waste, said a voice. Who's there? In the blink of an eye, Goldilocks had retrieved her sword and extended it in front of her. Goldilocks demanded to know, who's there? But she didn't see anyone else in the barn. Think about it. I think you guys know what this mirror was. If only the world could see what I see now, Goldilocks, a woman feared throughout all the kingdoms, standing vulnerably in a dress, said the voice. Don't be a coward. Show yourself, Goldilocks said. She turned back to the mirror, but didn't see her reflection. Another woman with a pale face and in a dark hooded cloak was staring back at her. It's a magic mirror. Hello, Goldilocks, said the woman in the mirror. You, Goldilocks said. There was only one woman in the world who could possibly have the ability to communicate from mirror to mirror. I know you. You're the queen everyone is looking for. Yes, the evil queen said. We're both women on the run. What do you want with me? Goldilocks said. Why do you assume I need something from you? The evil queen said. I've appeared to you simply to pass along some information that I've recently acquired. Nice try, but I'm not some dizzy maiden you can con, said Goldilocks, getting closer to the mirror. Try giving me a poisoned apple, said Goldilocks to the witch in the mirror. No, of course not, the evil queen said in a mocking tone. You're just poor Goldilocks, a girl who was tricked into thinking she was going on a date with the boy she loved and has been running from the law ever since. Goldilocks stepped away from the mirror. How do you know that? She asked with intensity in her eyes. I know more about you than anyone, the evil queen said. I know that when you were a young girl, you received a handwritten letter from a young boy who you loved, named Jack. He asked you to meet him at a house a little way out of town and gave instructions on how to get there. You went to the house and waited for hours, but he never showed up. How do you know all this? Goldilocks asked. You became sleepy in that house, didn't you? The evil queen continued. So you decided to go to sleep in one of the beds and hoped you'd wake up to find him. But you didn't wake up to him, did you? You woke up to find 3 bears staring down at you, and they almost killed you. You barely escaped the house alive, but the bears pressed charges against you anyway for breaking into their home and being young and scared. You ran. You ran, and you've been running ever since. For years, you wondered how Jack could have done that to you. How could he have framed you like that? And then finally, one night, you snuck into Red Riding Hood Kingdom, and you asked him. But Jack told you he'd grown up poor and illiterate. He hadn't sent you the letter because he never learned to write. That's illiterate. Someone else wrote that letter. Someone else framed you. Jack had been looking for you for years. He was devastated when you disappeared. He even climbed a beanstalk looking for you. You two have been meeting covertly in the shadows for almost a decade. You know what a decade is? You guys haven't quite turned a decade old yet. It means 10 years. I am more than 6 decades old. Whoa, I'm a lot older than you, huh? Every 10 years is a new decade. Who told you that? Goldilocks asked. Every driven person comes from a mountain of pain they would wish to keep hidden. The evil queen said, I did my research on you, Goldilocks. You and I aren't so different, except I know who wrote you that letter. Goldilocks shook her head in belief. How could she know something that Goldilocks had been trying to discover her entire life, for an entire decade? And who might that be? She asked. Red Riding Hood, of course, the evil queen said. What? Asked Goldilocks. She almost stopped breathing. It's true, the evil queen said. The young queen has a large mirror in her bedroom and she talks in her sleep. You'd be appalled by the things she confesses in her nightmares. Goldilocks had to sit down. She didn't even feel human anymore. She felt like an entity made of pure anger. Red Riding Hood has always loved Jack, and you were standing in the way, the evil queen said. She was young when she wrote the letter. She had no idea what the consequences would be. She thought you would leave brokenhearted before the bears got home, and then Jack would be hers. But she's had years and years of opportunities to make things right, Goldilocks said. Her eyes were staring down at the ground. She was blind with rage. She stood up, threw off the blue gown, and redressed in her own clothes, sword and all. What will you do now that you know the truth? Said the evil queen. I'm going to take Red on a trip, Goldilocks said, and she's not coming back. There's only one place where she can disappear forever, the evil queen said, and her reflection faded from the mirror. Goldilocks burst out of the barn and ran into the night, whistling for her horse. She was about to do exactly what the evil queen wanted her to, but more important, she was about to get her long overdue revenge. So the next chapter, chapter 18, Miss Bogart will read to you. It's the Mermaid's Message. Remember, Connor and Alex, with their bag of things, are still in Mermaid's Lagoon. I'll be back and we'll read about the Thornbush Pit for chapter 19 in a day or so. What do you think the Thornbush has to do with the ride Goldilocks plans to take Red Riding Hood on? I wish you could answer me. I miss reading to you. I miss reading to you in person, but I'm really glad we get to read our book over the internet. All right, have a great day. I'll see you maybe on Thursday or maybe on Friday. I'm going to come to your class on Thursday, your Zoom class, and say hello to you actually live. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all. So I'll see you at 9:30 on Thursday. Bye now. Have a good day. Find a book to read.